You're listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Joining us today is Ron MacCloskey, author of We Don't Feel Like It. Ron is the writer and producer of a TV show called Classic Movies with Ron, a film festival organizer, a game show host, and now a published author. Welcome, Ron. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you guys very, very much for putting me on your podcast, because I really believe that, we can do anything in our own home, in our own room, but if we are not out there telling other people about it, nobody will discover us.
Right.
Well, Ron, it seems like you've been very, very active within your career, but what made you decide to become an author?
Well, my curse and my blessing is I'm very creative and thinking constantly. So every week I have a different idea. Every week I have a different thought. And this book started really 20 years ago. When my daughter was young, she created two imaginary characters with her fingers on either hand, and she would have them talk to each other. And she gave them the names of Mickey and Beatty. So I decided that when I write this children's story, that's going to be the name of my characters, Mickey and Beatty.
Oh, very cool.
So I wanted to be a little bit different instead of, Dick and Jane. And so I used her. And then what I also decided to do, as I wrote the book, I decided to put things in the book that were also about me. So on the cover of the book, it says, "We Don't Feel Like It." And it's a story of Mickey and Beatty who don't want to go to school. And you see them standing in front of the school, and the school is called Lincoln School. Well, that's where I went when I was a little kid.
Oh, that's fun. That is very cool.
Yeah. So I have different things in the story that are about my life. And then what I also did, Matt, I decided to come up with something unique and different, because I'm always thinking about marketing or advertising. I wrote up a separate sheet called News Clues. So it's news about me, and I put down what the news is, and then I made up a sheet where as you go through the book, you'll find those clues and that news, and then you mark it off and you put down what page number it is.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the idea is that the child does that as they're reading along with their parent or as they're reading the book.
Correct, yeah. And I designed this on purpose to be a book read by an older child to a younger child or a parent to a child. So it's not like, see the red ball, see the brown dog.
Sure.
It's a little bit more involved. My dialogue is a little bit more intense. I mean, still easy to read and easy to follow.
Right.
But it's a little bit more so that someone really has to understand what's going on. And the pictures are wonderful. They're throughout the whole book. I also picked the font. I wanted it to be a friendly font. And then I also wanted to put where every page is a different color.
Oh,
so
okay.
So as they're looking through the book, they see different colors. Because, again, depending on what child you're reading it to, children respond to color and they respond to numbers and pictures and whatever.
Great.
So I definitely had that in mind when I thought about it.
Excellent. So how did you go about getting the illustrations?
Well, what I did first is, like I said, I had the story for a long time, and I used to go back to it every now and then. But again, doing all these other projects, it was really last January, I said, well, you know what? Let me get online and let me see if I can find a publisher. Because the publisher to me was the most important. If they like the story, then I'll go and take the next step. So I found a publisher. They're called Gen Z Publishing. They're located in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So they love the concept, love the story. So then I said, okay, let me get an illustrator. Even though I had drawn as a kid and I have a little art background, I really, I wanted somebody to do it right. So I contacted some friends that knew other friends that were writers and illustrators. And I found an illustrator, and it took from last January to about August to finish the book. It's about 36 pages of drawing. So, so it's quite involved.
Wow.
But what I did just to help the artist, because again, with my background being an artist, instead of just saying, here's the dialogue, you imagine the picture, I put the dialogue and then I sketched what I want that picture to be.
Great idea.
Yeah. So it was easier for them to come up with it instead of us going back and forth 3 or 4 times saying, no, I wanted this, I wanted that. So
Yeah, it
yes.
saves some time in the process. And then also, I'm sure they appreciated that they knew exactly what you were looking for.
Right,
And
right.
and then how detailed were you, Ron?
Well, again, I just did the sketch, and and that's the great thing about working with other people that are creative and artists. She'll come back and she'll do not only what I wanted, but then add something else to it.
Right.
Like I one picture I said, Mickey is in his bed. Well, she created the bed, but the whole bedroom, and she had stuff on the wall and stuff like. Yeah, so stuff like that was neat.
Did you have an editor after you wrote the story?
Well, that was the great thing about the publisher. Yes. They helped not only edit, but they also corrected any grammar that I had or suggested, changes here or there. They were very minor, but again, I'm glad I had somebody else that could do that for me. So, because again, when you're dealing with somebody that's in publishing, they know their stuff much better than I do. And this publishing company, by the way, they do everything. So they just don't do children's book.
Okay.
They do mysteries, they do adventures, they do everything. So it was nice dealing with the company that had expertise in a little bit of everything. So yes, they did help me.
And were all your communications via email, or were you speaking on the phone or in person?
Nope, all by email in this day and age.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, I haven't even, to this day, I haven't met the illustrator.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I did meet the owner of the company because she came on and she was on my TV show, the TV show, which is Classic Movies with Ron MacCloskey. So she did that as well. So it's kind of neat, when you do things and it's just a variety of things. I kind of tell people sometimes like I'm a restaurant and just you look at the menu and you have different choices in front of you. Well, that's what I do. So I'm a restaurant and I can do a TV show or a radio show or a performance or a kid's book or a whole variety.
Right. Choose what do you want to see today.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So just on a quick side note, Ron, where can people see your TV show?
Well, it's on public access, and from what I'm told, the way we do the TV show, it's put on a platform that is presented then to public access channels all over the country. My producer then keeps track of who then wants the show because they have to contact him to then get the episodes. So he has a list of every single state we're in, every single city we're in, and then on top of that, every month that goes by, he can find out how many people, like in the computer word, it's called a click. Every time somebody clicks on something. Well, in the TV word, it's like how many people are watching that movie. How many people like that particular show. And it's amazing. I mean, just wonderful. Cary Grant was in two films that I just love, His Girl Friday and Charade, and they're both public domain. Marlon Brando was in a movie called One-Eyed Jacks, the only film he was in and directed, and that's public domain. So there are so many great movies out there that are in public domain that, you probably watch all the time as you're flicking your channels and going from one to one. But hopefully if you see one and someone's talking to somebody, you stop for a second and then you're caught into the movie.
That is really cool.
And, I've already started talking to animators about possibly taking my story and turning it into a cartoon.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, that's, when you think about something and you want to get it out there, again, how do you get more people to see it? How do you get, access? And the only way is, in this day and age, is even though books are great, God bless them, not as many people are going to the bookstores anymore.
Sure.
So if you want more people to see it, then you've got to think of another way of doing it. So one way is animation and turning it into a short cartoon.
We saw on the back of your book you have an endorsement. How did you get the endorsement?
Well, this is a woman that I found that I knew when I was growing up. And she, just a wonderful educator. And she wrote a great endorsement for it.
Well, I just think the educator review would have to be helpful for people looking to buy books in a public school.
Absolutely. And again, that's the whole thought. As long as you have a plan or a thought in your head of why you're doing things, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's great to have your neighbors say they like it. Sure. It's nice to have your cousins say they like it. But if you have an educator who teaches children all the time and they recommend it, then yes, that makes a difference.
Well, Ron, tell us the story of how you got the endorsement that you were able to put on your cover.
Well, what I did is I reached out to people and I tried to find out, who's in the education field. And then again, this day and age of internet, all I did is I contacted them and then I sent them the text of the book. because again, it's kind of difficult to send out physical copies to every
Sure.
single person. So so I put it, and then I put, a couple of the drawings that they saw what the drawings were like, and said, let me know what you think. And then, of course, once I got a couple of them, but I had, one in particular that was great, then I went back to them and said, can I have permission, to put this on the back cover of the book? And they said, sure, absolutely.
Great.
So that was my thinking to begin with.
I think that's a great tip for people who are listening and who are working on their book. There's no reason why you can't send out not the final version to somebody or somebody that knows somebody and get an endorsement like that, because I think that's really powerful. I mean, you see big time books in the bookstore and it will say, a couple of words, or a movie, you picture the poster at a movie theater and it says, what a movie reviewer like, ABC News says excellent or something. So I think that's a great idea.
Right, exactly. And, and going back to what you guys are doing from the beginning, it's so simple to just sit down and write your story. I know some people, for some reason, they put obstacles in their own way, and it's really not that hard. I mean, a suggestion I would have for somebody too that has thought of writing a book but just can't get to that writing stage is, nowadays tape recorders are so cheap. Sit there one afternoon, just turn your tape recorder on and just dictate the story.
Sure.
Yeah, and now you have your story, and now maybe from that you can write it, and then from that maybe you can change it or add things to it along the way. But some people, for some reason, they just have things in their head, and they don't take that next step.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it's because people feel that they're going to get rejected, or people feel they're going to get negative comments or whatever. You won't know until you do it.
Right.
So what other opportunities are you finding to promote your book?
I'm always thinking of something. Other than this News Clues game I came up with, I also decided to take each character and then cut them out and make them look like book markers.
Oh,
But instead of a book marker, I put them like on a popsicle stick. So I call them book sticks. And one is of Mickey and one is of Beatty. And I took a shot in the book where they're holding hands. So they're separate, but then when you put them together, they're holding hands.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I go and I do a show and I go to, talk to people, I hand these out.
Oh, okay.
So right away, people want Mickey and Beatty, or people just want
Sure.
Mickey and just want Beatty. So yeah.
Great.
So like I said, people are out there, they want to help. Again, you got to be careful of some companies that are going to say they're going to make you a number one bestseller. Come with my company, give me $5,000. So you got to be careful of those. But there are people and there are companies out there that want stories, that want content. I mean, that's what everybody wants that's in the communication business.
The Author Inside You podcast is so excited to be joining forces with Scribble File. If you've been listening to our podcast, most likely you want to become an author, but it can be overwhelming. Where do you start? Who do you turn to? That's where Scribble File comes in.
So the cool thing is that you can upload your work to Scribble File, and other writers will give it a critique and give you examples of how you can change it for the better. And then, in turn, you can critique other writers' work on scribblefile.com. But you might be saying to yourself, I don't know anything about critiquing. How am I going to critique someone else's work? It turns out that on scribblefile.com, there are articles and examples on the best way to critique so that you can be more productive and give more positive feedback on your critiques.
So the wonderful thing about Scribble File is that you will build your confidence as being part of this community. And you can build your skills as a writer.
If you're interested in becoming a member of the Scribble File community, check out scribblefile.com, SCRIBOPHILE, scribblefile.com. Or you can go to the authorinsideyou.com, and we have a link right there on our homepage. Can you tell us any more about working with Gen Z Publishing and how you ended up going with them? Did you shop around?
The woman's name is Marissa Schwartz, and she's in charge of it. And Gen Z is like Generation X, but Generation C. So GEN, and then the letter Z Publishing. They're located in New Jersey. And they love the book, and they made a great offer on how to get the thing out there. So we're working together. They're trying to set up different we did something together in Princeton, New Jersey, a real nice book fair there. And then whenever there's an opening, I'm trying to take advantage of it and trying to get it out there. I'm trying to contact Barnes & Noble to make sure that my book is carried there. It's already carried on Amazon, and you can also get a Kindle version as well.
Great.
Yeah. So that's really helpful. And then just locally trying to contact schools or bookstore owners or whatever, as many as you can to get it out there so that people do it. And then I'll go and I will do readings, for the kids. But then also I developed a program for authors as well.
Oh,
so
excellent.
So I can talk about the book and talk about my story, but then also talk about how it got done, how I got the illustrator and all that stuff. So it's two ways of looking at it. One as the author themselves, and then one is getting out there and getting something done.
A few months ago, we spoke to an author who was able to get into Barnes & Noble by just calling the local manager of the store and asking if they could come in and sit at a table and sell books.
Even flea markets, absolutely. Flea markets, Barnes & Nobles. I mean, I don't know if your audience is familiar, and I'm sure you guys might be, but there's a thing called consignment.
Mm-hmm.
Consignment is you'll go in with 6 books and say, can you carry my book? I want to sell it for $10 a piece. Mm-hmm. At the end of the month, you go back. If they sell 3, then you get $30 and you take back the other 3 books. So on consignment means, they're not putting anything out. You're not putting anything out unless the book is sold.
Yes, that's good to hear again. I remember speaking with another author, but it's been quite a while since we've talked about that.
And then, Ron, when you do that, do you put anything in writing with the bookstore?
Oh, yeah, it's always good to do that because, again, you deal with sometimes the manager and the owner's not there, and then the owner will come in and say, what's this? Or vice versa.
Right.
No, it's always good to have something in writing. Most people understand the word consignment. It's just got to be decided on how many books you're left and then how many, at what price point you want to sell it at.
Sure. Okay. And then your book is available on Amazon, but you also do sell it at bookstores, obviously. So do you have like a stack of them, a box of them, or do you just order them
on demand?
Well, no, I can do it either way. Yeah, if they order through Amazon, that comes directly from the publishing house, so I don't have to deal with anything at all. But if I'm doing it locally, then yeah, I have to order. Usually I order 50 or 100 books because it just makes it a lot easier. And then you go out and you sell those books instead of just doing it, 2 or 3 at a time.
Excellent.
Try to get as many copies as you can. And then that way you have them. Then wherever you go, you have books to show people and to sell.
Great. That sounds great.
Well, Ron, what is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
Okay, well, there are 2 ways. Either one can be that Classic Movies website that I talked about. But the other way is to go to Gen Z Publishing. It's called info@genzpublishing.com.
Great. And we'll have that in our show notes also.
Yeah. If they just put, trying to reach Ron MacCloskey or the book, and again, the title is We Don't Feel Like It, then that way they can send it to me.
Excellent. Well, Ron, thank you very much for joining us today. Fantastic.
Well, thank you very much.
You're a fantastic guest, filled with tons of information, so thank you very much.
You are welcome.
I love talking to authors each week and finding out about their stories.
And if you don't want to miss any future episodes, do us a favor and subscribe to the Author Inside You podcast. It's free. And until next time,
right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.